I think when they saw the polling after Trump's conviction, I think you're seeing some panic, especially from the questions. And what you see from people like Matt Gaetz, from Marjorie Taylor Greene, is really not just panic. It's just throwing out as much, it's almost like throwing out as much opaque disinformation or just asking questions, which is what they always say, in order to get talking points for their own fundraising, to make sure that they keep President Trump happy at Mar-a-Lago. And it really has nothing to do with facts. The issue is a lot of the American public can't discern between facts and fiction when you actually have leaders of the free world, congressional representatives putting that kind of stuff out. But I think what you're seeing really is panic questioning and panic screaming going on from a lot of the far right, especially those close to Trump and Mar-a-Lago. And that's what I make of it, because that's what they do, right? You're messaging to your constituency, not necessarily, to the American public at large.
Well, I'll tell you, Denver, it's good to have you back. While we're talking specifically about this Merrick Garland hearing yesterday, Andy Biggs, Chip Roy, Tom Massey, three members of the Freedom Caucus, sent Merrick Garland a letter about January 6th. I brought this up yesterday. I don't mean to belabor it, but you were deeply involved in the investigation into the January 6th riots. And they said in this letter that they wanted to explore the FBI's possible involvement in facilitating the events of January 6th. The involvement in facilitating the sacking of the U.S. Capitol. We've heard this from certain members of Congress before, that there were unmarked vans, that there were FBI agents in the crowd trying to stir all of this up. But this is now going to be on the record from this hearing, Denver. What do you do with that?
I think you do exactly what you should do as a sane, rational human, is you scoff it and you destroy them with facts and data. And the facts and data are this. Did they read the over 1,000 charging documents? Have they actually read the sentencing guidelines? Have they seen the evidence? Do they know the number of weapons that were there? Are they really going to go down this QAnon rabbit hole of a deep state globalist false flag, which is exactly what they're inferring, because they're talking to base that's breathless with this kind of belief systems. This is a religion now. I would say that, when you're talking about J6, when you're talking about QAnon, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make J6 people into veterans of some kind of political war where they were on the right side of history. And a lot of that has to do with making Donald Trump happy. This all goes back to Mar-a-Lago. It all goes back to their fundraising. It goes back to their polling. It goes back to cynicism. And the very fact, either they're deliberately obtuse, either they're stupid, right, or they're cynical, right? And all that is not good for the American public. But the fact that they're going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole in 2024 when everything has been debunked and it's absolutely ludicrous, maybe they're watching Skinwalker Ranch too much. I think maybe that's where we're at right now as far as these congressional representatives.
But it's not just members of Congress, Denver. You also have former President Trump repeatedly referring to those who've been incarcerated because of their involvement in January 6th as hostages, especially considering this happened 3.5 years ago, and we are still relitigating the events surrounding it. What exactly happened? Who was involved? Who was at fault? And this is still an ongoing live conversation, and Donald Trump uses language like that still to this day repeatedly. Is it too late at this point? We're too far gone for the truth to really permeate?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of this is already baked in, and I've been telling people this, and we've talked before. The best question, right, is the fact is that people believe that J6 was some peaceful tourist thing that a couple people got out of hand. I don't know how we turn that regardless of evidence, right? And what Trump is saying to his supporters and what his congressional sycophants are saying is, don't believe your lying eyes, believe us. You got to remember, too, is Donald Trump's the same guy who retweeted that, Obama and Biden killed SEAL Team 6. I mean, this isn't a guy, he's either, again, completely cynical and know he's lying, an incredible grifter of disinformation, or he's fairly ignorant, right? He definitely has, he's one piece of wood shy of a cord, right? I mean, that's the only way that you can look at this. And I think, again, we have to be brutally honest about what we're seeing. Is we're seeing disinformation and conspiracy theories being propagated from the former president of the United States all the way down to congressional members and to leaders of the Republican Party.
Well, it's interesting, Denver, you hear this line, you take people at their word, believe people when they show you who they are. Donald Trump was talking to Newsmax and floated the possibility of imprisoning his political opponents if he becomes president again. This is not new. He said not that long ago. It was in June. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of America, Joe Biden. Do you take him at his word?
Yes. I mean, he likes to do what he says. A lot of it's ridiculous and it's half baked. I think what you're going to see the difference, though, between 2016 and 2024, if, Donald Trump is to win, is that the cabinet he picks, he's going to value loyalty over any type of competency. And I think that's what should worry individuals, is that if anybody like the Cash Patels or Rick Rennells or Mike Flynn's are in the conversation for being on the cabinet, that's a real issue. Or the Matt Gaetzes, right, which has been in the conversation. I mean, you have really some of the least talented individuals to ever serve in the American government that would actually be in there, and also completely under the thumb of Donald Trump and his sycophants, right? And you see the RNC's already bought by it. So, believe in what they say. How about this, though? And I'm going to ask you all this, too. And I know you're asking me questions. I'm sorry. But, somebody who even says that and doesn't mean it, what's wrong with them? Right? Is that a joke? Right? And that's the thing, too, is that you're saying, well, do you believe him? Yes. But if he's just spouting BS, why would somebody
Yeah.
who actually held the highest, office in the land be saying that anyway? It's irresponsible. And it goes to his judgment and maybe his advanced age, and maybe he's losing something upstairs.
That's the knock, Kailey, that you hear, or the response that you hear. It's either locker room talk or he's joking around. Take the man seriously, not the message. Isn't that the line we used to hear?
Yeah,
That's what we
repeatedly.
always
Denver, do you
heard.
have more on that?
No, exactly right. No, I was just listening to you, and that's exactly right. I mean, you're on it, right? Is it? Then they'll say, "Well, he's just joking." Goodness gracious, it. They say the worst, most awful, horrible things that goes after the very structures of our American institutions and government, and then somehow it's a joke. It's the same thing that the incels pull. It's the same thing that QAnon conspiracy theorists pull. It's just the same thing, and it's just the same people doing the same thing and pushing the same message every day.
Well, and one of those messages is the unfairness of the U.S. justice system, the idea that it's being weaponized against Donald Trump specifically. And yet a member of the Biden family is currently in trial in Delaware. Hunter Biden, Denver, we should disclose, I believe you know him quite well, but especially given what we have seen, the panic you were describing in the aftermath of Trump's guilty verdict. What happens if A, Hunter Biden is convicted of these federal gun crimes with which he's charged, or if he's not, if he's found innocent? Does that just make all of this worse?
I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, and again, it's pretty interesting. What if he's convicted and goes to jail? What if he's convicted and gets probation? What if he's convicted and gets community service? What if he's convicted and gets counseling? What if he's not convicted? All these things, I think, have different levels of response. What's going to be very difficult for any Trump apologist or messaging if Biden is convicted at all, number one. Wow. That's, it's going to take away a huge talking point. And I think, by the way, if we can go full circle, I think that's why they're going after Merrick Garland. They need another target because the Biden impeachment stuff is over. It's been proven completely ridiculous. All the laptop stuff's gone. Right. So now what you have right now is that they're trying to actually latch on to something. But if Hunter is actually convicted of this gun charge, and you have to let law and order take its course, right? And President Joe Biden said that too. If he's convicted of this and gets probation, and it's pretty dire, I think it's going to be very difficult for any of the MAGA types to actually go after it. If he gets jail time, which would be very unfortunate based on his addiction and this gun charge, that would be something. But you know what I find amazing is that the Lindsey Grahams and people like that are starting to come out saying, why are they actually going after him based on this gun charge, where I think it's just so little people have actually been actually prosecuted for this. So I think you're seeing a real issue here. Hunter could be found guilty. If he gets probation or jail time, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Trump acolytes to actually play what's going on with Trump in a good way. But if he's innocent, I think then you're going to see conspiracy theory screaming happening at the top of everybody's lungs. I mean, hair on fire ridiculousness.